Welcome to the Entperprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet. Welcome to episode 123 of the Entperprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Natal Dank on the show with us today. Natal is recognised as a pioneer in Agile HR and business agility, author of the award-winning book Agile HR and head of HR Trend Institute. Gaining, retaining and growing employees is so important in today's world. Today we'll explore Natal's book together with Riina Hellstrom, Agile HR. Let's get into the episode. Natal, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah. Natal, I've read your book a while back, and as we spoke before the show, I've spread the word wide and far. It's a wonderful book and I gained so much from it myself. But I'm keen to know your backstory. Like, what led you down this path to be connecting Agile and HR and writing a book with Riina?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, but it starts with essentially too much HR process. So I was working at a fairly big bank in the Netherlands at the time, and we were using a 25-box matrix, because you can never have too many boxes, to assess talent. And it was one of these processes that we had lost the sense of kind of why we were doing it. Where was the people? And this process would take, months to complete. And I was a global head of talent at the time. And then there was a sort of lack of using the data that we collected to really then drive results and good conversations. And then it was sort of, so why are we doing this? Is this process over people? And I kind of left that role slightly kind of, just disenchanted or disengaged with my profession at the time, and went looking for what to do next. And I knew I wanted to get in touch with how do you build great organizations and what was going on, and kind of what I was seeing. There was a new type of doing business that was starting to emerge. And I was very fortunate. My first assignment as a newly fledged consultant was with an organization that was a very successful startup, was now kind of pumping, and they were agile from word go. And I was asked to come in and help them evolve performance and reward for their primarily tech area, which was quite a large part of the business. And they were working in a full agile sort of formation. But what was interesting is it was the way it happened. So I went in there like a good HR consultant, and I did my interviews and I read the engagement survey. And then I went and looked at what I call the cool kids, so what's Google doing at that stage, what's Facebook doing, but they're not so cool anymore, and all these kind of ones. And then I presented, of course, my blueprint of how would you do performance and reward. And I was cutting edge, I was taking out ratings. I was, changing bonuses to make it more collective. So I thought, this is awesome. And the head of technology at the time said, well, how do you know it's going to work? What's the evidence? You need to test this. You need to get some data. You need to experiment. And then based on the outcomes, we will, move forward and make some changes. And I was like, oh, what? And you can't experiment on people, can you? And so I sort of fell into trying Agile. I was very fortunate. The teams were really open, of course, to experimentation. They wanted to fix the problem, which is what I discovered. People will participate if they want to fix the problem. And yeah, after 3 months and then 6 months, we had all this data of what worked and what didn't. And I realized you co-created change by working this way. And I went, oh my God, there's something in this. I started calling it Agile HR and never looked back. That's how I ended up here.
You were blended into the Agile or Scrum team approach right from the get-go by the company that you were consulting to. That is awesome. That is co-creation.
Totally. Yeah. I was I suppose forced to think about how do you do it differently, because up until that stage, I thought Agile was just for tech. So I was one of those people that was in another, but I'm HR, I represent the whole organization. And here I am thinking it's a method that's not for me. It's just for another team. And quite quickly, I realized, hang on, there is so much in here. And what I loved is that in HR at the time and still today, we are talking about things of how do we be more evidence-based? How do we make sure it's about the people and not the process? How do we build this engaging employee experience like a customer journey? And all the tools sit in the world of Agile and business agility. And it's also that's already happening in the business. So why don't we use the same things to build the results that we're trying to get to? So for me, there was just this natural crossover. And also there was a reason that this company was so successful. They were using techniques that are proven to work in the new disrupted, complex world in which we operate. So, and HR has to know how to build people solutions in that new world. So yeah.
And I was only talking with a company yesterday where I heard of a new safety software being deployed in the company, and we're deploying a new safety software and we're putting all our time into this. And, we haven't got any other time for doing anything else in HR apart from this. But then I speak to the people at the front line of the factory, they don't even know about it. And I'm thinking, exactly. How are you deploying a software for people in the factory when that you haven't even engaged with your customers to start with, and there's no co-creation going on? And there's certainly no experimentation going on because we're in full-blown deployment phase. I was just thinking, oh boy.
But that is the legacy, don't you think? So I think what's interesting about HR is the reason it often gets this bad name is it does represent quite traditional, tailorist, post-industrial kind of ways of working. And in the world of Agile, that often equals a more waterfall, big bang, one size fits all implementation. And we know that, once it's a more complex problem to solve, that just does not work. But so there's a lot of legacy for organizations to unpick, and a lot of HR processes are in that legacy. So I often talk about at the moment where I think we're in such an exciting stage of the evolution of the workplace, coming out of the pandemic and what's going on in the world. It's scary, but exciting. And we're co-creating it kind of real time. But a lot of that is for HR is a big part of that because it's about what does it mean for your people. However, that actually means co-creating a new version of HR at the same time. And that again is a bit scary, but also really exciting.
Yeah. I really love your description of it too there, which is, understand who your customers are, co-create together, and then think how can you experiment and test rapidly and learn and work together to co-create this wonderful thing. And it's a really nice description of just Agile in its most base, simple form, isn't it? It's wonderful.
Cool. Yeah. And it should be quite simple. It doesn't need to be this big, scary, unattainable thing. It should be quite simple to implement. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a good experience a few days ago. I coached a chap in using more Agile techniques and project management, just simply. And within 1 hour, he was up and running, and he felt comfortable. Of course, I didn't go into much depth, but he got enough to be able to go and do what he does and have a lot better time than the old waterfall approach anyway.
Exactly. And better results, I'd like to think.
Yeah, better results. Yeah. Natal, who are some people that really influenced you along the way? Like, you've had a massive journey of learning, like we all have in this space. Anyone who comes into this space, there's always massive learning that when you think back to what you did in the past. But who are some people that inspired you on this path?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And what's interesting is when I first started in this area, we used the term pioneer because there was only myself and a few others, well, at least talking about Agile HR as a thing, even though, of course, the world of Agile had existed for 20 years and it was across different parts of business. And so I definitely kind of shout out to Pia Maria Thoren, who's based in Sweden, and she wrote Agile People, and she was sort of tweeting and posting about this topic. Of course, I met up with Riina Hellstrom, and we connected on Twitter originally. So again, it was this idea, I started to talk about Agile HR, started to write about it, started to post about it, and I found fellow people on the social media. But there really wasn't that many people. And so in the UK, I know that, and I have to sort of say a big shout out to some of my first clients. They were the first people to actually give this a go. And we were just experimenting with it, in real time, which was so exciting. But there's a couple of key collaborators. So what happened is there was Tracy Waters at Sky at the time, Jane Weir, who's based in Australia. She was at BT Finance and then is sort of doing other things now. So a few key people were realized what this was about. They came to some of my very first meetups. So I started this meetup community, the first of which were in London. And it was people that went, I'm going to give this a go. And they were going back to their teams and literally trying things out. I think Tracy, for example, sat a team down. They all read Scrum by Jeff Sutherland. And then, in a week later, they went, okay, what should we try first? So these were, and this is why I started the meetup community back in 2016. And to be honest, the first meetup was 20 people in a basement room in London. So, and then it just kept growing and growing. And it was people that you had to learn through case studies. You had to learn through giving things a go. And so this meetup community became so valuable. Another key person was Amanda Bellwood. She was looking after a team in Sky Betting and Gaming. And then she's gone on to be head of HR in various places. And she also, and still today, I work with her teams, and so it's watching these teams evolve over a number of years and having these key collaborators where you can go, look, I've learned this. Do you want to try this out with your team? Is just so key. And then, of course, key writers in the world of Agile. I've mentioned Jeff. I would say Steve Denning was a big influence on me. I think particularly because when you're in HR, it's about what's going on for the whole organization and what is this concept of business agility and what does it mean for people and policy and kind of practices. So definitely a lot of what he wrote about and the role of the manager and things like that was very influential for me. Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's great to hear, Natal, too, how many of those people that have influenced you, I can really hear the co-creation coming through in everything you've done. Because you've mentioned so many people you've worked with there as clients even that you've co-created with, obviously, and created amazing outcomes. Natal, in your book, Agile HR with Riina, there's a lot of great insights and a lot of great content. If you were to summarize it, like what are the key takeaways that you'd say are important from what you've learned that you put into the book and even what you've learned since the book? Like I'm sure there's been many learnings since then too.
So the book was about being like a toolkit or a guidebook for someone like myself who was starting out in Agile HR and needed a sort of a step-by-step guide of how to do it. And what I love is that people keep getting in contact saying, oh, that's how I use it. I've been to new clients and new teams and they pull out the book and they've got Post-it notes in there and highlighters. And I was like, excellent. That's exactly how we want it to be used. So that was the intention. I think the main thing about the book, it was trying to deconstruct or translate these concepts of agile ways of working and business agility into the context of HR. So, and what I've found is particularly early on in my sort of journey or career in this area, lots of teams would say, oh, well, we had this agile session with an agile coach or someone from tech, and we didn't really understand it. So it demonstrated that while you weren't talking about anything different, you needed to use the words that resonated with your particular profession or audience, I suppose. So I think that was one of the main things is, hey, everybody, this is something that's quite easy to get your head around. It makes a lot of sense. And now how do you start to implement this in your world? And so then I think particularly the section around Agile for HR. So the book is in two sections. One is Agile for HR, which is how do you use the tools and techniques within HR teams to build solutions in everything from performance reward to learning and development. And then the second part is HR for Agile, which is what's HR's role in helping organizations transform and embrace agility. The two, of course, go hand in hand. So the big theme is that you can't go off and help teams design, a new operating model that for business agility, if you don't understand how to use agile techniques yourself, if you don't run a retro yourself, then you can't go off and espouse that to another part of the organization. So that's sort of one of the big things. Get to know it, try it out yourself, build your new own working model, and then go off and co-create, we keep using that word, with the business on how they can transform.
That's awesome. So it really gives you that insight on how to apply Agile within your own HR team to get better at executing change that sticks and creates great outcomes for internal customers and external. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you then use HR to get results for Agile by considering the human factors and all the other pieces that come so wonderfully out of HR? Yeah, it's so
summary.
It's so cool, Natal, because like with Peter Hines has been on the show a few times, and Peter's a legend from the world of lean, as I mentioned to you before the show. And Peter always talks about the key for lean is to bridge the gap with HR. He does this image of a bridge with a big gap in the middle. And he says, like, you got HR and people factors on one side, and you got lean tools and techniques on the other, but it's bridging that gap is what we need to do to make it stick. Well, your book has bridged that gap from both angles. It's like you're standing on one side of the bridge looking down, and then you're standing on the other side of the bridge looking down too, and you're going to bridge that gap and get sustainable outcomes.
Yeah, I'm glad that you see it that way. I think what's really interesting is that it's changing, but one of my first big kind of themes was, how do we start working together, the Agile community and HR? Because let's be honest, they saw each other as sort of enemies almost at the start. And I get it. I get that HR represents a lot of the legacy of what you're trying to change in an organization. Though I felt like sometimes HR got an instant bad rap, but then also, quite quickly, Agile coaches maybe sometimes didn't appreciate the complexity of how do you build change across the whole organization, as opposed to maybe just one team or say the tech area that already have got Agile.
Yeah.
So I think it's how do we understand each other a lot more? And I actually, I still do. I always try and go and spend time at Agile meetups and spend time with Agile coaches. But one thing that's really funny is when I say, oh, well, HR business partners can be Agile coaches as well, it sometimes freaks Agile coaches out. They're like, oh, what do you, no. Oh God, no, we've got years of training. And I said, no, there's a lot of the same skills. And so help business partners understand, Agile, and they could be your partner in this, so it's an interesting how we see each other sometimes.
Natal, I've been there from the first organization I got involved with to deploy as like an Agile lean type manager. I ran in with gusto and started to run my own path. And I quickly found within a matter of weeks that I was really annoying the HR team, and I picked up on that, sensed it pretty quick. They probably made it pretty obvious to me, but I rapidly collaborated with them, with Jan Kett and Nadia and a lot of the team in this company. It was Signet and the Winson Group, which has also got Insignia. And we collaborated and worked tightly. At odd times, we stood on each other's toes still. I think that happens, but we worked hard together and made it very much a cultural journey. And how do we make this an enterprise journey? And I think we were feeling our way, because there was nothing that we could read and understand to take that path. Luckily we collaborated rather than fought or saw each other as opposing forces. But I'm guessing this is a common story that you've heard of or seen at times when maybe collaboration doesn't happen and it goes the wrong way.
Yeah. And I think it's what we talk about a lot of different elements of how do you achieve full transformation. And look, transformation in itself is a bit of a misdemeanor, isn't it? There's no end game, actually. It's this constant evolution. But to build change, if you're, people organize, teams like HR, such as finance, such as, depending on where you are, compliance, definitely marketing and comms. All of these areas are so much a part of that change. And so if you're seeing each other as opposites or the enemy from word go, it's not going to go very well. So let alone getting your kind of key stakeholders over the line. So I think, you're setting yourself up to fail from word go if we don't work together. In saying that, yes, both sides need to understand each other better, and definitely HR has to understand what is the value, what's the values of Agile, what does it really mean, and how do they come willing to learn just as much as willing to contribute. So, I definitely see that.
What's your thoughts on some of the challenges that within a lot of universities, they still do not teach anything on lean or agile. And then also in a lot of MBAs and even master's degrees, they do not teach anything on agile and lean. And so I know in the agile profession and a lot of senior leadership development, you don't even hear of this thing called agile or lean. And then all of a sudden you've got some advocate in the company pumping it up and spruiking its wares. And I can understand from their headspace, they're going, but I've just done an MBA. I didn't hear one thing about this thing. And, you can see the tension that can come into play.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that there's the same situation happening in the HR profession. So a big part of what I do at PXO Culture and through the HR Trend Institute is how do HR teams learn about business agility, and how do they start, building practices around that. A lot of qualifications that people are doing for HR don't touch on any of that. And so I had a good friend who she was at ING for a number of years, and she helped them, achieve a big part of their agile transformation. And she went and spoke at, it was in the Netherlands, at sort of the top Netherlands university and the top HR kind of program. And none of them had heard about business agility and agile HR. And ING was seen as the one, the big employer. So she's like, well, we're not setting up any graduates to come into ING, as an example, to be able to hit the ground running. So definitely. And one thing I will say is I'm very, very happy is that there's a university in America that have put the book in as one of their sort of streams in their
Awesome.
HR qualification, and people are learning about agile HR. So that's nice.
Well done, Natal. That'll help solve this problem we just mentioned. Ten times project execution and improvement speed is what many organizations have achieved with Agile. That's 10 times faster at executing this work than when they previously did before Agile. Recently, we've experienced chaotic and volatile times, but we're still doing okay. Most of us have come through what's happened, and we're still going forward. The challenge is the uncertainty and obstacles that lie ahead of us. Survival of the fittest and most adaptable applies to organizations as much as it does to nature. Agile is the approach organizations from our largest and most successful to small startups have used to enhance their organization's ability to innovate, improve, and adapt at all levels and all places of the organization. The Enterprise Excellence Academy is running courses upcoming on Agile Scrum Master Product Owner and Agile Scrum at Scale, certified by Jeff Sutherland's company, the Agile Education Program. These courses are tailored to be industry agnostic, not just covering how it could be applied in IT, but also medical, operations, government, supply chain, you name it. If you're interested in learning more, go to enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com. Let's get back to the episode. Because I totally get it. Like, I don't blame these senior leaders or HR leaders who have been through a lot of education and they're highly qualified. And you've got some person out of left field spruiking this thing that just didn't even come up in my education. It's like, what else? What are you going to do? You're going to look at it skeptically. Natal, with
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Natal, with your work going forward, what are you focused on now? You've got this book that I know you can buy anywhere. It's on Amazon. It's at every bookstore. What's your focus on your work going forward now? Like, I know you were just mentioning and maybe doing some more trips around the world and things that are coming up, but what are you focused on upcoming?
So, so what happened is over the last couple of years, I wanted to get back into what I call sort of the full HR remit. So I became known as the Agile HR girl, which is fine. However, for me, going forward, agility underpins how we work. So this is, and this is what business is trying to achieve. How do you, deliver value at speed, respond and adapt to your disrupted world, and, rapidly innovate to stay competitive. So that's kind of, I feel, more and more a given now going across all organizations and industries. So I now focus on kind of the full spectrum of what sits in sort of, if we want to kind of drop the word HR, I call it people, experience and operations, or you can call it people and culture. There's a few terms out there. I don't like to use different terms unless I know people are actually doing things differently, but we do need to drop the HR at some stage. And then I'm looking at, okay, in all that you do around these people solutions and people practices, how do you do it with an agile lens? And so I work very closely with HR leaders and teams to essentially build up their skills over time, and then how do they actually roll, design and deliver in an agile way their people strategy. And what that actually means is, like other parts of the business, is the operating model of HR has to change. So that's kind of where I spend a lot of time now, is how do you move, because for people that don't know HR, what's interesting is not only were we traditionally quite siloed from the business or the rest of the business, which is crazy, we within HR, we're siloed on topics. So recruitment would be owned by somebody, talent development, internal development would be owned separately and not necessarily talking to recruitment, which is external talent. You then got learning and development over here, you've got reward over there, you've got, culture change, you've got HR business partners, and everyone was kind of doing their own project, trying to get time from everyone else. So there's lots of stuff happening, a lot of things getting released onto the business, like your health and safety that you were just talking about earlier, but no true engagement, no what's going on for our customers, what's the right business problems to solve at this moment in time. And as we know from Agile, solving complex problems it needs to be in a multifunctional, multi-skilled way. So I spend a lot of time now looking at how do you build this more multifunctional version of HR? How do they partner very closely with the business and co-create? And what does a T-shape, I use, a T-shaped professional look like in HR and a T-shaped team? And then from that, how are you doing great things in topics like, building a strong employee value proposition, solving your skills crisis, helping a business go net zero, how do you find talent in this very competitive marketplace? How do you find tech talent? These kind of things. So it's all the business problems that are out there that everyone should be relating to. But now how do I help HR be this multifunctional team that helps the business solve that from the people side? That's basically what I look at.
Yeah, that's great, Natal. And you certainly named some key topics. And one that's passionate of mine too is that how do we go net zero? And I can't see companies truly getting to net zero or our world getting to net zero unless we create agile teams throughout whole organizations, and, or lean teams that are running improvement experiments every day, because we're not going to do it otherwise.
No, it's so if anyone wants to learn a bit from the HR point of view, on PXO Culture, my website, I've written some articles from a sort of a HR lens. Actually, I wrote an article for the Business Agility Institute magazine recently, and I'm the same. It's not just a business target, and it's not just changing operations. This is a people initiative. You've got to win the hearts and minds, and we've got to all learn how to live differently, let alone, work differently and build different types of products. So, but it's a complex problem, and that's what Agile is all about. And also, it's a problem that was created by people. So the idea is that we can solve it. But I agree, it's probably the biggest one yet to try and solve in business. Yeah. So,
yeah. The more we
yeah.
can have everyone in the organization working on it every day through experiments, the faster and better we'll get there. Yeah. And there's an absolute win-win there too, isn't it? It's not like, I think that's been proven over and over again now.
Oh, totally. And what's, if you take more the HR lens, what's really interesting, and I've been looking at a lot of data that shows that, particularly, of course, the younger the generation, and particularly since the pandemic, people are seeking more meaning in their role. So we talked about this with the Great Resignation and these trends like quiet quitting, all of this kind of thing. But what's interesting is that if you could align your employee value proposition with going net zero, and people think, yeah, I can save the planet while I work here, you've got them. And not only can you get the best talent on the market, you can, keep them, and they're going to feel like they're doing great work. And I think something like Patagonia is one of the best examples out there. If you start saying your purpose to be here is to save the planet and make it go longer and be longer, everyone wants to work for you. So again, it gives you that competitive advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. I was working with Unilever last week, and the talent within Unilever is off the charts. And yes, there's many facets to that. But one facet is they're a purpose-led organization, and the people sense and feel that, and they feel bounded to that, because it was impressive.
Definitely. And I've recently did some work with Unilever, and I can second that. It's and again, they even did a whole kind of initiative around how do you define your purpose in the organization. So, that's strong, isn't it? That's, so everyone coming into work is going, okay, this is the purpose of the organization. This is my purpose, and this is how it all fits together. So, do things like that, you're going to get the best people.
Yeah, too true. Natal, what would be your 2-minute tip in this area? Like if you had someone in an elevator, very slow elevator, heading up to level 36, what would be your 2-minute tip you'd give them on this topic we're talking about of Agile HR?
So if they're brand new to Agile, I would say try a personal Kanban. It's a fantastic way to learn how you often can't get very much done each day, and understanding how to manage your own work in progress, reprioritize, deal with capacity, but just start to use that visualization of work. And there's lots of, I think there's a book out there, there's lots of things on personal Kanban. If you're then someone in HR, I would say don't think that co-creation and user testing equals this huge, big kind of, multiple focus groups and huge kind of initiative. It can be as easy as, walking down the corridor or getting 5 people on Zoom and saying, what do you think of this? And then using that feedback to iterate before you release. And that's as simple as it can be.
Yeah, you can take it as simple as complex as you want to take it, can't you? That's great advice. Natal, what's been a recent insight for you? Like I can see over, I don't know, your whole career, you've probably had many, but what's been a recent learning?
Well, I would say that unfortunately that we've still got a long way to go. So I think sometimes when you're people like ourselves, we work with clients that are really kind of up for it, ready to go. They maybe get why, they've asked you in to help them learn and change. You end up in a bit of your bubble, don't you? So I got great collaborators. We're always speaking about the need to modernize and change HR. So I've had a few engagements recently, or a few conversations where, we've still got a long way to go. There's still a lot of HR teams out there that haven't been given the opportunity to understand how this could help them, have maybe had a negative experience with Agile done in a bad way, maybe forced onto them, maybe done it, in a very non-Agile way, top down. And so if I think about business transformation and business agility in general, yeah, we're not there yet. There's no utopia, is there? So, and I think maybe every challenge that comes along, like going net zero, means that you've got to keep working at it and to be that master. So we've still got a long way to go, and HR still needs to change. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think it's a long path, a never-ending path, isn't it? And the wonderful thing about, like you said, is having that strong purpose down the way that you're looking at, because it helps you keep on the path, because it's not easy sometimes, is it? It can be tough sometimes.
Definitely. And I think because, it's the old change curve, isn't it? So, what is it, where you go through the stages of change and or the stages of grief. And if you're people like ourselves, we've gone through it, and we're off and we're away. And I sometimes think, oh, maybe I should be talking about something else now. Surely we need to move on. And then you have a new conversation. You're like, oh, no, I need to keep, coming back to the basics of what is Agile HR and why do we do it? Because yes, we've still got a big kind of change to happen across the world. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a change that can impact so many things, Natal, just like I've heard through chatting to you today, like everything down to our environmental impact, which is amazing. Natal, how can people reach out to you and get in touch to learn more or to get help?
Well, I do believe I'm the only Natal Dank on LinkedIn, and possibly, I don't know, I've never met definitely the combination of Natal and Dank that seems to be fairly unique. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. So just get in touch. I really like to connect. I'm always happy to chat. And then my main company is called PXO Culture, one word, so pxoculture.com. That's where we do all our kind of agile HR work. So come and join us. We do loads of meetups, often free. So please come along. And then, of course, I also now look after the HR Trend Institute. And we just did our 9 trends for 2023. So you can go and check it out. You can go see go on my YouTube channel and you see it there. And in the new year, in January, we're having a meetup about the trends. So that would be something to join.
Oh, that sounds great timing. Natal, well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, everything you have done and everything you will continue to do to help us create a better future. Natal, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye for now.
What a great episode. Remember, you can visit our website, enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com, to learn more about upcoming courses on Agile. Please like, subscribe and share this podcast to help others gain insights and create a better future. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, Agile helping HR and HR helping Agile transformations. Agile offers so much to HR teams by way of enhancing their culture, team performance, and the ability for them to innovate and execute projects and achieve change. It connects any team so closely with its internal and external customers, focuses a team on its aligned vision and goals. It amplifies performance. HR teams have so much to offer Agile transformations also, when you look at it in the inverse. An Agile transformation requires the people of the organisation to change. HR teams are the specialists within our organisations in this area. When they are heavily involved in supporting any major change, the chances of success are greatly increased. The second key takeaway for me was keep it small, co-create, test, learn, adapt rapidly. The Agile system is key to this approach. It helps create a culture that focuses on a minimal viable product, conducting some change work that can be released to customers either internally or externally to learn from and adapt rapidly. This approach creates a form of co-creation mentioned by Natal. It can be taken a step further by including customers within Agile teams, actually external customers. I've seen a number of teams set up with customers as the product owner. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Natal. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.